Hey crew, it's Pitt and I am back with some more philosophy. We are diving back into the works of Friedrich Nietzsche. This is Thus Spoke Zarathustra. We are on section 20, Child and Marriage. I am reading aloud, discussing as we go along. That's not the format for everybody, but if it is for you, then stick around. But first, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, get lost in the weeds at any point in time, there are several playlists that are linked up here and down below where you can find the answers that you are seeking. With that being said, we are going to dive into the text and discuss as we go along. Section 20, Child and Marriage. I have a question for thee alone, my brother. Like a sounding lead, cast I this question into thy soul, that I may know its depth. Thou art young, and desirous child and marriage. But I ask thee, art thou a man entitled to desire a child? Art thou the victorious one, the self-conqueror, the ruler of thy passions, the master of thy virtues? Thus do I ask thee, or doth the animal speak in thy wish and necessity, or isolation or discord in thee? I would have thy victory and freedom long for a child. Living monuments shalt thou build to thy victory and emancipation. Beyond thyself shalt thou build, but first of all must thou be built thyself rectangular in body and soul. Not only onward shalt thou propagate thyself, but upward. For that purpose may the garden of marriage help thee. A higher body shalt thou create, a first movement, a spontaneously rolling wheel. A creating one shall create. Marriage. So call I the will of the twain to create the one that is more than those who created it. The reverence for one another as those exercising such a will, call I marriage. Let this be the significance and the truth of thy marriage, but that which the many too many call marriage, these superfluous ones, what shall I call it? The poverty of the soul in the twain. The filth of the soul in the twain. The pitiable self-complacency in the twain. Marriage, they call it all, and they say in their marriages are made in heaven. Well, I do not like it, that heaven of superfluous. No, I do not like them, those animals tangled in the heavenly toils. Far from me also be the God who limpeth thither to bless that which he hath not matched. Laugh not at such marriages. What child hath not reason to weep over its parents? Worthy did this man seem, and ripe for the meaning of the earth, but when I saw his wife, the earth seemed to me a home for madcaps. Yea, I would that the earth shook with convulsions when a saint and a goose mate with one another. This one went forth in quest of truth as a hero, and at last got for himself a small, decked-up lie. His marriage, he calleth it. That one was reserved in intercourse, and chose choicely, but one time he spoilt his company for all time. His marriage, he calleth it. Another sought a handmaid with the virtues of an angel, but all at once he became the handmaid of a woman, and now would he need also to become an angel. Careful, have I found all buyers, and all of them have astute eyes. But even the astutest of them buyeth his wife in a sack. Many short follies, that is called love by you, and your marriage putteth an end to many short follies with one long stupidity. Your love to woman and woman's love to man, would that it were sympathy for suffering and veiled deities. But generally two animals alight on one another. But even your best love is only an enraptured simile and a painful ardor. It is a torch to light you to loftier paths. Beyond yourselves shall ye love some day. Then learn first of all to love, and on that account ye had to drink the bitter cup of your love. Bitterness is in the cup even of the best love. Thus doth it cause longing for the Superman. Thus does it cause thirst in thee, the creating one. Thirst and creating one, arrow and longing for the Superman. Tell me, my brother, is this thy will to marriage? Holy call I such a will and such a marriage. And so ends that section, and there is a theme of disdain that seems to be prevalent, right? I again cannot say that the man was gay, but he sure comes off that way. Every single chance that he has, he is deriding marriage, children, the whole institution, and somebody commented that he was anti-Christian. No, really? It's because he liked to brush his teeth with a penis, in my estimation, right? Like, of course he was against the Catholic Church. Of course he was against the Protestant churches because he had proclivities that they wanted to hit him in the head with rocks for, right? Of course. But the sentiment behind this is not entirely wrong. How many people do you know that are divorced? I won't wait because it's probably most of the people you know. As a matter of fact, if you know people who have been married for longer than 15 years, that is, these days, the exception to the rule. Most people take marriage much as he is describing it here and as just a convenience so that they can come together and mutually align for a while, but it is not a real mastery of self prior to. Almost nobody does that, myself included. But it is even not a will to get better after the marriage. And it is a lack of commitment that is the fall of almost all of these marriages. It's not that the institution is wrong, it is that your commitment to it is not there. And so that is the problem, as I see it, in what he was calling out even back then, right? This was a while back, but it wasn't in antiquity. But throughout the history of people have been put together inappropriately. You should absolutely be on the quest to self mastery, but it's not necessity. I did not start on the quest to becoming a better person until after I had been married and had children. So that spurred me to what I am doing. That was not the beginning, but it is part of the process. That should be part of the process, right? My wife is my refining fire. She is the example that I look to for strength in not doing terrible things, right? She gets to learn from me how to do some terrible things when it's appropriate, and I get to learn how to not do terrible things, and we complement each other in that way. And so marriage should be a partnership, right? I have a helpmeet. I don't have a servant. I have someone to help me to become a better me. That is what I look for in everybody these days, but even back then, 24, 25 years ago now, that's what I was looking for in a wife. Next up, 21, voluntary death. Many die too late, and some die too early. Yet strange soundeth the precept, die at the right time. Die at the right time. So teaches Zarathustra. To be sure, he who never liveth at the right time, how could he ever die at the right time? Would that he might never be born. Thus do I advise the superfluous ones. But even the superfluous ones make so much ado about their death, and even the hollowest nut wanteth to be cracked. Every one regardeth dying as a great matter, but as yet death is not a festival. Not yet have people learned to inaugurate the finest festivals. The consummating death I show unto you, which becometh a stimulus and promise to the living. His death dieth the consummating one triumphantly, surrounded by hoping and promising ones. Thus should one learn to die, and there should be no festival at which such a dying one doth not consecrate the oaths of the living. Thus to die is best. The next best, however, is to die in battle and sacrifice a great soul. But to the fighter, equally hateful as to the victor, is your grinning death, which stealeth nigh like a thief, and yet cometh as master. My death, praise I unto you, the voluntary death, which cometh unto me because I want it. And when shall I want it? He that hath a goal and an heir wanteth death at the right time for the goal and the heir. and out of reverence for the goal and the air, he will hang up no more withered wreaths in the sanctuary of life. Verily, not the rope makers will I resemble, they lengthen out their cord, and thereby go ever backward. Many a one, also, waxeth too old for his truths and triumphs. A toothless mouth have no longer the right to every truth. And whoever wanteth to have fame must take leave of honor betimes, and practice the difficult art of going at the right time. One must discontinue being feasted upon when one tasteth best. That is known by those who want to be long loved. Sour apples are there, no doubt, whose lot is to wait until the last day of autumn, and at the same time they become ripe, yellow, and shriveled. In some ageth the heart first, and in others the spirit, and some are hoary in youth, but the late young keep long young. Too many men, life is a failure, a poison worm gnaweth at their heart. Then let them see to it that their dying is all the more a success. Many never become sweet, they rot even in the summer. It is cowardice that holdeth them fast to their branches. Far too many live, and far too long hang they on to their branches. Would that a storm came and shook all their rottenness and worm-eatedness from the tree. Would that there came preachers of speedy death. Those would be appropriate storms and agitators of the tree of life. But I hear only slow death preached, and patience with all that is earthly. Ah, ye preach patience with what is earthly? This earthly is it that hath too much patience with you, ye blasphemers. Verily, too died that Hebrew whom the preachers of slow death honor, and too many hath it proved a calamity that he died too early. As yet had he known only tears and the melancholy of the Hebrews, together with the hatred of the good and the just, the Hebrew Jesus. Then was he seized with the longing for death. Had he but remained in the wilderness and far from the good and just, then, perhaps, would he have learned to live and love the earth and laughter also. Believe it, my brethren, he died too early. He himself would have disavowed his doctrine had he attained to my age. Noble enough was he to disavow. I've got a playlist on that. But he was still immature, immaturely loveth the youth, and immaturely also hateth he man and earth. Confined and awkward are still his soul and the wings of his spirit. But in man there is more of a child than in the youth, and less of melancholy. Better understandeth he about life and death. Free for death and free in death, a holy naysayer when there is no longer time for yea. Thus understandeth he about death and life. That your dying may not be a reproach to man and the earth, my friends, that I do solicit from the honey of your soul. In your dying shall your spirit and your virtue still shine like an evening afterglow around the earth. Otherwise your dying hath been unsatisfactory. Thus will I die myself, that ye friends may love the earth more for my sake, and earth will I again become, to have rest in her that bore me. Verily a goal had Zarathustra, he threw his ball. Now be ye friends and heirs to my goal, to you I throw the golden ball. Best of all, do I see you, my friends, throw the golden ball, and so tarry I still a little while on the earth. Pardon me for it. And so, this looks, I have an unconventional Bible study where I go through in exhaustive detail why I do not believe the things that are contained in that book in large part. Some of that is related to the New Testament. As a matter of fact, it has its own playlist. I'm not sure if I'll link it or not, but it is there. An unconventional New Testament, I believe is what I called it. And we read through what Jesus said in small part. We didn't do all of it. I believe that the disciples had an entirely different agenda than Jesus did. That Jesus himself told you that he was not divine, that everything that he could do, that you could do as well, but that he was indeed at least in the doctrine laid down by his apostles, more concerned with the death and the after than with the current. I do not agree with that at all. I don't believe that we're on a prison planet. I don't believe that you are destined for hell. I do believe some unconventional things, and you are more than welcome to check those out. I believe that you will leave eventually, but that you are meant to be here and fully invested in this life. Not overtaken with sorrow and lamentations, but instead joyful for the fact that you get to experience life even when it gets a little bit fucking rough. I do not deny that rough times happen. If you go back through my playlist, you can tell that I have been through some of those rough times, and I embrace those. Embracing those hardships is the death to self. Taking the fact that there is a plan here. Okay, there is a plan for you after you die, but here, right now, you have a purpose to serve. And part of that purpose is learning the hard parts. And once you can do that, you lose the ego, not entirely because that doesn't happen, but you lose the overarching need to be whatever. I am an example, right? I am here to live and be the example, but I am here to fully enjoy my life, and I do. I love my wife, I love my children, I love our home, I love our provision. I love all of the things about this, and I still have trouble paying my bills. I still have hardships that beset me. I still have days where I contemplate not being here. But I am at the point where not being here voluntarily is not a thing. I have a switch that I can flip. I don't even have to try to start a shotgun this time. There is a switch. You can find it. You have to do the meditations to get there. But there is a switch where you can go home if you want to. I'm here until they take me. Until I am done with whatever it is, I am going to be here fully invested in this life. And that is the death to those things. I am secure in the after, in a way that most people aren't because of my own divinatory, revelatory experience. I have a peace and understanding that most people don't. And so it is easy for me to give up the things that I don't like here. It is easy for me to cast the death upon the things of the worldly nature, which you should be doing, right? And so that is what I am taking from this. The death to self, the death to selfishness, the death to the worldly, the death to the things that are holding you back. All of those things you need to die to in order to live. Because you're not living if you're still holding on to all of those things. You don't even know it. You think that you're happy. There is more happiness to be had. Come find it. Join me. 22. The bestowing virtue. When Zarathustra had taken leave of the town to which his heart was attached, the name of which is the Pied Cow, there followed him many people who called themselves his disciples and kept him company. Thus came they to a crossroad. Then Zarathustra told them that he wanted to go alone, for he was fond of going alone. His disciples, however, presented him at his departure with a staff, on the golden handle of which a serpent twined around the sun. Zarathustra rejoiced on account of the staff, and supported himself thereon. Then spake he thus to his disciples, Pray, tell me, pray, how came gold to the highest value? Because it is uncommon and unprofiting and beaming and soft in luster, it always bestoweth itself. Only as image of the highest virtue came gold to the highest value. Gold-like beameth the glance of the bestower. Gold luster maketh peace between moon and sun. Uncommon is the highest virtue, and unprofiting, beaming is it, and soft of luster. A bestowing virtue is the highest virtue. Verily, I divine you well, my disciples. Ye strive like me for the bestowing virtue. What should you have in common with cats and wolves? It is your thirst to become sacrifices and gifts yourself, and therefore have ye the thirst to accumulate all riches in your soul. Insatiably striveth your soul for treasures and jewels, because your virtue is insatiable and desiring to bestow. Ye constrain all things to flow backwards towards you and into you, so that they shall flow back again out of your fountain as the gifts of your love. Verily, an appropriator of all values must such bestowing love become, but healthy and holy call I this selfishness. Another selfishness is there, an all too poor and hungry kind, which would always steal, the selfishness of the sick, the sickly selfishness. With the eye of the thief it looketh upon all that is lustrous, with the craving of hunger it measureth him who hath abundance, and ever doth it prowl round the tables of bestowers. Sickness speaketh in such craving, and invisible degeneration of a sickly body speaketh the larcenous craving of this selfishness. Tell me, my brother, what do we think bad and worst of all? Is it not degeneration? And we always suspect degeneration when the bestowing soul is lacking. Upward goeth our course from genera unto supergenera. But a horror to us is the degenerating sense which saith, all for myself. Upward soareth our sense. Thus it is a simile of our body, a simile of an elevation. Such similes of elevations are the names of the virtues. Thus goeth the body through history, a becomer and fighter. And the spirit, what is it to the body? Its fights and victories herald, its companions and echo. Similes are all the names of good and evil. They do not speak out, they only hint. A fool who seeketh knowledge from them. Give heed, my brethren, to every hour when your spirit would speak in similes. There is the origin of your virtue. Elevated is then your body, and raised up with its delight, enraptureth it the spirit, so that it becometh creator and valuer and lover and everything's benefactor. When your heart overfloweth broad and full like a river, the blessing and danger of the lowlanders, there is the origin of your virtue. When you are exalted above praise and blame, and your will would command all things, as a loving one's will, there is the origin of your virtue. When you despise pleasant things and the effeminate couch, and cannot couch far enough from the effeminate, there is the origin of your virtue. When ye are willers of one will, and when that change of every need is needful to you, there is the origin of your virtue. Verily a new good and evil it is. Verily a new deep murmuring, and the voice of a new fountain. Power is it, this new virtue, a ruling thought is it, and around it a subtle soul, a golden sun, with the serpent of knowledge around it. Here paused Zarathustra a while, and looked lovingly on his disciples. Then he continued to speak thus, and his voice had changed. Remain true to the earth, my brethren, with the power of your virtue. Let your bestowing love and your knowledge be devoted to be the meaning of the earth. Thus do I pray and conjure you. Let it not fly away from the earthy and beat against eternal walls with its wings. There hath always been so much flown away virtue. Lead, like me, the flown away virtue back to the earth, yea, back to body and life, that it may give to the earth its meaning, a human meaning. 100 times hitherto hath spirit as well as virtue flown away and blundered. Alas, in our body dwelleth still all this delusion and blundering. Body and will hath it there become. 100 times hitherto hath spirit as well as virtue attempted and erred. Yea, an attempt hath man been. Alas, much ignorance and error hath become embodied in us. Not only the rationality of the millenniums, also their madness breaketh out in us. Dangerous is it to be an heir. Still fight we step by step with the giant chance, and over all mankind hath hitherto ruled nonsense, the lack of sense. Let your spirit and your virtue be devoted to the sense of the earth. My brethren, let the value of everything be determined anew by you. Therefore shall ye be fighters, therefore shall ye be creators. Intelligently doth the body purify itself, attempting with intelligence to exalteth itself. To the discerners all impulses sanctify themselves, to the exalted the soul becomes joyful. Physician, heal thyself, then will thou also heal thy patient. Let it be his best cure, to see with his eyes him who maketh himself whole. 1,000 paths are there which have never yet been trodden, 1,000 salubrities and hidden islands of life, unexhausted and undiscovered, is still man and man's world. Awake and hearken, ye lonesome ones. From the future come winds with stealthy pinions, and to fine ears good tidings are proclaimed. Ye lonesome ones of today, ye succeeding ones, ye shall one day be a people. Out of you who have chosen yourselves shall a chosen people arise, and out of it the Superman. Verily, a place of healing shall the earth become, and already is a new odor diffused about it, a salvation-bringing odor, and a new hope. When Zarathustra had spoken these words, he paused, like one who has not said his last word, and long did he balance the staff doubtfully in his hand. At last he spake thus, and his voice had changed. I now go alone, my disciples. Ye also now go away, and alone. So will I have it. Verily, I advise you, depart from me, and guard yourselves against Zarathustra. And better still, be ashamed of him. Perhaps he hath deceived you. A man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. One requiteth a teacher badly if one remain merely a scholar. And why will ye not pluck at my wreath? Ye venerate me. But what if your veneration should some day collapse? Take heed, lest a statue crush you. Ye say ye believe in Zarathustra? But of what account is Zarathustra? You are my believers, but of what account are all believers? Ye had not yet sought yourselves, then did ye find me. So do all believers. Therefore all belief is of so little account. Now do I bid you lose me, and find yourselves, and only when ye have all denied me will I return to you. Verily, with other eyes, my brethren, shall I then seek my lost ones. With another love shall I then love you. And once again shall ye have become friends unto me, and children of one hope. Then will I be with you for the third time, to celebrate the great noontide with you. And it is the great noontide when man is in the middle of his course between animal and Superman, and celebrateth his advance to the evening as his highest hope, for it is the advance to a new morning. At such time will the down-goer bless himself that he should be an over-goer, and the sun of his knowledge will be at noontide. Dead are all the gods. Now do we desire the Superman to live. Let us this be our final will at the great noontide. Now, this is in part a continuation of the previous one. This is death to self. Right. This is the seeking of becoming better. When he talks about the Superman, it is not a particular race. It is not a particular person even, but rather the concept of what man is capable of. We are capable of more than we do. We live in dismay. We live in disillusion. We live in discontent. We live in the land of dis. But if we lived in the land of possible, if we lived in the land of more, then we could. If you took it upon yourself that you were going to act correctly every single time, not necessarily according to any one particular doctrine, but correctly according to your soul, the things that you were told, your life would be different. You do not do that now, almost certainly. Almost nobody does. But if you do, then you can precipitate the Superman, right? If you were to live your life all the way through, doing nothing but that which you know to be the best, then you would be the Superman. That doesn't mean that you're able to fly. It means that you're able to transcend, right? It is mental alchemy on a very fundamental level. Check out the Hermetic videos if you want to learn more about that. It is the deciding that I will be the example. This whole section was that. Remove yourself from me, who am teaching you to go do the things which you were called to do, is the sum of all three sections of this. They were honoring him with the staff, saying that, oh, you know these things. That's what the staff represents. And he looks at the staff and he's like, yeah, I know some things, but there are things that I don't, and you need to go out and find them. That is the sum of these three things. And so, this is the aspiration that I live by. Right? I earnestly strive every single day to do nothing with which I disagree. To do that only which I am in accordance with. I have structured my life that way, and it has brought me much more than other people. That's not in a monetary sense, right? That's not about the money involved. It is about the spiritual growth and maturity involved in that. And that part I am definitely on the path of. And so I am here as the example, telling you to go forth and do. Die to yourself. Seek that which you will not stand, right? Stand only where you want and do not stand for anything that you do not agree with. That is the easiest way to usher in the era of the Superman. But keep in mind that there are a lot of the negative influences out there, and that you must separate yourselves from them in order to achieve that which you want in your own life. This is going to be a little bit early, but we are in the second part, so I'm going to save this one for a different video. We're going to start fresh into the second part of Zarathustra next. So, oh wait, I didn't show y'all. This is the second part. So, we are going to go ahead and wrap this one up here today. It is shorter than we have been doing, but that's okay. We're not on some kind of a timeline. We're exploring this and talking about these things because there is some wisdom here. I really do feel like, at least in the first part, he was close to something that he did not get. Knowing his history, I don't think that he ever got it, right? We talked before, and we will talk again, about he got to the very edge of enlightenment and never quite crossed the threshold. If you are unaware of what I'm talking about, go back and start from the beginning. He was close, but he never quite got there. Some things were holding him back. Some of that was societal, more than likely. Some of that was personal, more than likely. I really do feel like he had a tendency to want to taste man meat. That is something that was absolutely unacceptable in his era. And so that would bring bitterness, right? To live your whole life not being able to express who you are. Stand for what you stand for, and don't stand for things that you don't. And he was doing that, at least in part. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat complicated set of topics. There wasn't a whole lot of meat in this one to dig into. I'm hoping that we get some more as we go along, but we have had some other meat to dig into as we went along. If you like what I'm doing here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. As long as it remains respectful, it gets to stay up. And if you really like what I'm doing here, hit me with that super thanks, because I am not a communist. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.